Hey everyone, Mike here with the Sysadmin School, and today I'm going to go over with you installing Windows Server 2016. It's pretty straightforward and simple, so let's get right into it. So the first thing we need to do in order to install Windows Server 2016 is we need to download the ISO. Now, Microsoft has a great evaluation center where we can download most of Microsoft's software for free for a 180-day evaluation. Yes, 180 days. That's about half a year, which is great. So we're on that site right now, and I'll put up the link in the description here, but it's microsoft.com/enus/eval center, and then we're on the Evaluate Windows Server 2016. And we have a few different options here on what we want to try or what we want to download. So we can choose ISO, we can choose Azure, we can choose Virtual Lab. And the first one is what we want to actually do. We want to download the ISO because we're going to be mounting this ISO to our virtual host so that we can then install Windows Server 2016. Now, we could do the Azure or the Virtual Lab, but these are both for deploying Windows Server 2016 into Microsoft's cloud environment. So we're going to choose ISO, and we'll click Continue. And then from here, we're going to fill out all of our information. Let's see, there's CEO. We'll choose business exec. And excuse me, but I'm going to blur out some of these numbers just because they don't need to be on here. United States, perfect. And now that we have all that figured out, we'll click Continue. We select our language, and we click Download. And now you can see at the bottom, our download has gone ahead and started. Now, I already have this ISO, so I'm going to go ahead and just cancel this. And now let's get right into installing Windows Server 2016. So here I am on our brand new virtual machine. I've never actually turned this machine on. I just created it, and it's got the Windows Server 2016 ISO mounted to it. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to click the play button here, which is going to power this server on. And as you probably notice, I'm in a VMware environment here. And it's going to immediately jump into the installation of Windows Server 2016. Great. So it automatically boots to that ISO. You can see that it's starting to spin up here. And we're going to be prompted with the menu to go through in order to install it. So we're going to select our language here. I'm going to leave it all at defaults. And then we're going to click Install Now. Now, if we already had Windows Server 2016 installed and we wanted to troubleshoot, say, a problem or was having an issue booting, we could come down here to repair your computer and we'd get a few different options. But we don't have any of that, so we're just going to click Install Now. And the setup's going to come up and you're going to be prompted with an activation screen. Now, don't worry, you always get prompted for this, but if you notice, there's a little link down here. It's not a button, it literally looks like a link that says I don't have a product key, and that's going to kind of kick you into that evaluation mode, which is perfectly fine. So we're going to click I don't have a product key, and then we get to choose the type of Windows Server we want to install. So we have a few different options here, and they've made a switch between Windows Server 2012 R2 and Windows Server 2016, and that switch is now, instead of the default installation being the full graphical installation, the default installation is Server Core. And Server Core is where you have literally a command prompt or a PowerShell prompt, and that is it. When you log into the server, you don't have any of the nice start menu. You don't have any of the Internet Explorer or graphical interfaces that you're used to with a Windows server or with a desktop. The reason for that being they're much more secure. I did write an article on some of this and why it's important, so you can check that article out. But what we're going to do here is, for the sake of this video, we're going to do the desktop experience because that's the one that gives you the full GUI and not just the command line. Under most circumstances, as long as the software I'm going to be installing supports it, then I'm going to do Windows Server 2016 Standard because it's more secure and it really has less patching when you're using Server Core. And then we have the option between Standard and Data Center. And really the big difference between these two when you start getting into it is if you're going to be using them as a Hyper-V server. So if you're going to be using the server as a Hyper-V host, you may want to consider Data Center because it's more expensive in terms of licensing, but it's going to pay you back because all your virtual machines, all your Windows virtual machines are already licensed. You don't have to license each individual virtual machine. We're not doing that here, so the standard edition is fine, and the standard edition is going to be fine 99% of the time. So we're going to click that, and we'll go ahead and click Next. And then we get the typical, user agreement licensing term, so we're going to agree to that. And now we have our option of whether we want to upgrade or custom. Now, what's interesting here is they've never put in a new installation. When you do a new installation, it's always going to be custom because we're not upgrading. So we're going to do that, and it's going to show us the only hard drive that we have here. Now we can click new and we can allocate partitions and stuff what we want, but we don't have to. As long as we have a drive available with enough available storage, we're good to go. So I'm going to click on my 75 gig drive here, and we'll click Next. And Windows is going to start the installation at this point. It's going to copy all the files that it needs off of the ISO. It's going to prepare everything, and then it's going to go through install features, updates, and then it's going to finish. So we're going to let this run, and through the magic of video editing, I'm going to speed this up dramatically because I know you don't want to sit here and watch this. Now that the installation has completed, we can go ahead and set our password, or set our super secret password here. Got to click in the window first. Hey, let me set my super secret password. Hit finishes the setup, and now we're brought immediately to a login prompt. And we can simply do our Control-Alt-Delete, type in our super secret password, and we're immediately brought to our Windows Server 2016 desktop. And that is it. That's really all you have to do in order to install Windows Server 2016. If you enjoyed this video, please think about subscribing or leaving a comment down below, and check out my site, thesysadminschool.com, where you can learn everything you need to know to become a systems administrator.